In this episode, I visit the Mount Moffat section of Carnarvon National Park. This is in the southwest of the park, and Injune is the closest town and fuel at about 165 kilometres to the park entrance. There are about 90 kilometres of track in the park, so plan your fuel carefully. There are two ways into the park from Injune. One is via Womblebank and the other via Maryvale. The Womblebank route is slightly longer, but is about 50% of the way sealed and is a more all-weather route. The Maryvale route has a steep creek crossing at the Maryvale Creek, which may be unpassable after rain. I went in via Womblebank, but I did find it tedious for some reason. I came out via Maryvale and enjoyed this drive more. The park end of the Maryvale route has a lot of deep sand, but mainly corrugation free and a smoother drive. About 10 kilometres before the park entrance is this slab hut and stockyards. It's a nice place to stop and stretch the legs. I camped at the closest site to the entrance, the Darganelli Rock Pool. It is a large open area on the creek with some shade, water and the usual basic toilet facilities. I caught up with the two couples I met in Salvatore Rosa during my stay here. There are two other smaller campsites deeper in the park which I visited, but did not see the point of towing the trailer any further, and it was not crowded here anyway. I left early next morning to explore the 90 kilometres of tracks in the park. The track surface varies between sand, gravel and rock, and as usual there are some sections of heavy corrugations. My first stop, not far from the campgrounds, is an impressive sandstone arch known as Marlong Arch. It's a short 160 metre walk from the road. It's a brisk morning and I've got up early and I've driven around the four-wheel drive circuit, and the first stop is what's known as Marlong Arch. It's a sandstone outcrop that's had a lot of erosion and resulted in this impressive looking arch. So it's quite an interesting place. I'll have a bit of a wander around and get some pictures. It got quite cold overnight. There was ice on the car in the morning, and this affected the drone batteries. I had to warm the batteries on the Utes Demister before it would fly. The sun was low and impacted the video quality from the drone, and as it was constantly complaining about the battery temperature, I did not want to fly it too far or out of visual sight. Next stop along the track is a sandstone pillar known as Lot's wife. The story of Lot's wife begins in Genesis, after two angels arrived in Sodom at eventide. And as you do with angels, Lot invited them to spend the night at his home. The men of Sodom were exceedingly wicked and prompted Lot to offer up these angels. Instead, Lot offered up his two daughters, but they refused. As dawn was breaking, Lot's visiting angels urged him to get his family and flee, so as to avoid being caught in the impending disaster for the inequity of the city. The command was given, "Flee for your life. Do not look behind you, nor stop anywhere in the plain. Flee to the hills, lest you be swept away." Lot's wife rejected this suggestion and turned around to look, so she got turned into a pillar of salt. This sandstone pillar, a little bit like a mini Chambers pillar, is all that's left of what was once a massive sandstone bluff. So it's called Lot's wife. We'll go and have a look and grab some pictures. This is known as the Kookaburra Cave. There's a lot of stencilled artwork here, wonders of the kookaburra that gives the cave its name. It's a big overhang under a very large sandstone cliff, so it obviously would have been a very good place to set up camp. There's evidence of scratch marks in the rock, presumably from sharpening spears and so on. So also, unfortunately, there's a little bit of vandalism, which is a shame people have to do that, but still a very spectacular and pleasant sight. I don't know what made this footprint, but I do not want to meet it. This is called the Marlong Plains. I'm here at a site known as the Chimneys for very obvious reasons, quite spectacular, and I'm feeling very fortunate. At the last stop at the Marlong Plains, I left my camera on the back of the hard cover of the ute. Drove off, and 20 kilometres later I realised I didn't have the camera. So I was expecting to either find it shattered on the side of the road or run over, and it survived 10 kilometres on the back of the ute before I found it in the middle of the road. Hadn't fallen in nice soft sand, it had fallen on rocks, and amazingly it still seems to work and nothing appears broken. So I'm very, very relieved about that. The rock with the hole is known as the Looking Glass and is one of the stops on the 5.8 kilometre walking circuit at the entrance of the park. Cathedral Rock, also at the entrance on the park, is named because the stress marks on the sandstone cliff look like man-made stonework, and the curved end of the rock looks like an apse. It's only a short walk into the rock from the road, however the best views of it are from the distance or from the air. While I love my P900 travel camera, its small sensor does not make it any good for astrophotography. This is the Scorpius constellation rising. I set off on my way home as this was the last of the national parks in my Sandstone Belt trip. We are fortunate to have so many of these wonderful parks and hopefully preserve these areas untouched for future generations.